here Monday mornings, 9 a.m., and hopefully you can join us live, and if not, watch us on YouTube or at hangoutwithcoachkerry.com. That's hangoutwithcoachkerry.com. Today is the fundamentals of business, real life, real business, real questions. And I have two of my Academy members on with me today. I have Kathy Scott and Grace Gary, who both hail from Victoria, British Columbia. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their business. So we'll start with you, Kathy. Kathy, tell us about you and what you do.
Hi, Kerry. Thanks again for having me on. Today, I always enjoy these sessions with you, learn a lot. I have a business called Niche Travel, and what I do is create wonderful tour experiences for women in a small group setting, and we travel all over the world and have just a fabulous time.
Great, excellent. Thanks, Kathy. And before you switch off, Kathy, just tell us a little bit more about some of the destinations that you have upcoming, and some you've been to just inspire the listeners.
That sounds great. Just recently got back from India, which was absolutely magical, as always. It's one of my favorite places to go. Upcoming, I've got a tour going to India this fall, Laos and Cambodia. Another one in the spring to the Baltics. I'm actually hosting personally a tour to Myanmar or Burma this fall as well.
Yeah.
And for next year, we've got Baltics. We have Santa Fe. We have... where else are we going? San Francisco and Napa, and a tour to South Africa, doing the winelands and the garden route, all sorts of fun things planned.
Great, great. Thanks, Kathy. So if anyone's interested in finding out more about what you do, they can go to www.nichetravel.ca.
Right.
So I want to now introduce my other panelist today, who is Grace Gary. Grace is also an Academy member. And Grace, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about you?
Thanks, Kerry, and thanks for having me on. I also learned a lot from listening to you. My name is Grace. My business is Graceful Solutions, and I'm a counsellor. And I help people when they get stuck. They hit some roadblock in life, and they need help just to get past that. And I help them take control and feel empowered again and feel hopeful and make the changes that we're going to make them happy.
Great. And how can they find you, Grace, online?
They can find me through gracefulsolutions.ca, and I send out tips on emotional well-being and emotional eating and weight loss if anybody's interested. Great.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So today is, again, real life, real business, real questions about business. And so what I've done is I've challenged my panelists to come up with some questions for me that might be questions you might have as well. So I want to just start by telling you a little bit about myself, if this is the first episode that you have tuned into. I have been a business coach for 16 years. I grew up in a family business. And so I grew up with entrepreneurial parents, and I saw all aspects of business, from the challenges they had with hiring staff, to inventory supply, to marketing strategies to get people in the door. There were so many things that they dealt with every single day. So I experienced those. I too personally have been a business owner myself. I owned a real estate company. I have a background in real estate, so I have a sales experience as well. And so owning my own real estate company, I saw a lot of those same kinds of challenges that entrepreneurs face all the time. And then when I decided to enter into the world of coaching, what I found was people were always asking me questions about their business. So it was a natural fit for me to be a business coach. And what I've learned in the 16 years that I've been coaching is that entrepreneurs are pretty practical people. They want practical information. They want practical results. And I've identified there's really 10 key areas of business. Now, as an entrepreneur, you might consider maybe the 10th one, which is exit strategy, not that important. Although it's really important when you start your business to actually consider what it's going to look like when it's finished and what you're going to do when you no longer want to do that which you do. So I think that's a really key piece to consider. The other areas cover sales, marketing, HR, and even if you are an independent operator, in other words, you have no part of your business plan is to not have any employees. you still are going to subcontract out, because I believe in a philosophy that I was taught many, many years ago by a very successful public speaker called Patricia Fripps. And her comment was, there is no sense in doing well that which you shouldn't be doing at all. I'm going to say that again because you may want to write this down. There is no sense in doing well that which you shouldn't be doing at all. So it's a really key thing to be thinking about delegation. Even when you're operating on your own, there are things that you're not the best person to be doing. So HR is an important piece because you're really looking at who's the team you're going to collect around you. Then you also have to consider business planning. You also have to consider your leadership. Even if you're managing the people who are on this outsourced team you still have to have some leadership skills. What are your communication skills like? What's your personal effectiveness? What's your work-life balance? All of these things are incorporated in these 10 key areas of business success. And in fact, I have an assessment tool called the Business Effectiveness Evaluation, which has 10 questions within those 10 areas. And as a result of that, you get a key snapshot of where you are right now in business. And it's a critical thing to make sure that you, at any given time, know where you are. And then from there, you can establish your next 90-day plan, and then you can establish your 6-month and 1-year plan based on those areas that you've scored low on and that you feel are highly motivating for you to deal with right then and there. And it's a really good starting point. When I coach people like yourselves who are in business, it really comes down to 3 key areas. One of them is clarity. Getting clarity on where you are right now, what it is you want to create, what your current challenges are. That's really important, because if we don't know where our starting point, then really anything that we put in place isn't necessarily applicable to you, isn't specific to where you're at, because there isn't one size fits all. Yes, in business, there are common problems and there are common solutions. Absolutely. It's just at that moment in time, that may not be the problem you have or the solution that you need. So it's really important to get that clarity. Then the next stage is strategy. How you're actually going to implement or revamp or put new pieces in place that you've identified from that clarity piece need to be worked on. So you need to figure out what's the strategy and then the specific tactics you're going to use. So if you need more clients, that's an important piece to recognize that you need, that the issue is actually you've got everything in place, you just need more people to know about you. So that becomes a marketing piece. So then what are the tactics you're going to employ about getting more people in the door or your phone to be ringing, whichever works for you. And then the last piece, of course, the strategy piece is where you spend most of your time. And in a coaching relationship, that's where a lot of time is spent once clarity is over. You may still go back and do clarity on a regular basis, but strategy is really another key piece, or is the place where we'll probably spend most of our time. And then the last piece is accountability. And accountability is being held accountable for the things that we say we're going to do. I don't know if you're like most entrepreneurs, and even myself, that deadlines work for me. A commitment to someone else really works. It makes me up my game. It makes me accelerate the growth. It makes me take on maybe a new challenge that I would have found an excuse or procrastinated on. So accountability is a really key piece. And if you don't currently have a coach, you need to find somebody who's willing to hold you accountable and that you respect, so that you will do what you say you're going to do. So that's kind of an overview. What I want to do now is go to my panelists and ask them, do they have a question for me? So, Kathy, how would you like to go first?
Well, I think what I would like to ask first, Kerry, is I've had this question asked a little bit of me lately from a number of my friends who know I have you as a coach, and they've asked me what is the difference between a business coach and a life coach?
Great question. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson to answer that question, and that is originally the only type of coach training there was life or personal coaching. Thomas Leonard, the founder of Current Day Coaching, he really believed that everybody could be a coach and that everyone needed a coach. And his philosophy came from the place of you as a client inherently know your answers, know the truth behind any questions that you might have. So how a coach will help you uncover those is by asking what are called powerful questions. And that's the basis of personal or life coaching. They call it sort of coactive coaching because you're both participating in it together. The coach is asking powerful questions, and you as the client are listening and deeply going into determining what your own answers are. Business coaching is different in that the people who come to business coaching are entrepreneurs, small business owners, and they want practical answers. So they're looking for a combination of sort of mentoring, consulting, business acumen, because there are things that they just don't know. They haven't got that education. They haven't got that learning. So business coaching, in fact, is a combination of personal life coaching skills of asking powerful questions and, in fact, helping and co-designing and co-creating with the client the right strategies that are going to work for them. Because if you came to me and you asked me a question about your business, and if I asked you a powerful question, you might not be able to come up with the answer to it because intuitively you might not know that particular answer. Yes, at some point you may want to intuitively check in if you've got some options to see which resonates with you or sits well with you first. But the fact of the matter is that as a small business owner, we don't know what we don't know. We haven't taken the time, or often had the time, to develop the skill and abilities that come with developing business acumen. And that happens over time. So working with your trusted advisor, business coach, can help you do that. So the other little distinction I want to draw for you is there are a lot of people out there who are business coaches in the sense that they coach people who own a business. And primarily they are personal and life coaches dealing with people who own a business. My training, for an example, I'm a licensed professional business coach, in fact, an advanced professional licensed business coach. And so what I'm trained on is not only those coactive coaching skills, but I'm also trained on when a person comes to me and asks me a question or a business, I know what they're looking for. I know what those answers are. I know that they're looking to develop a new level of knowledge and understanding. And that comes from me being trained on the fundamentals of business. Business is business is business is business. You first of all need marketing strategies to bring customers in your door or get your phone to ring. Then, as a kind of this funnel, if it comes in, and at any given time you want to have 8 to 10 marketing strategies going. Don't start them all at once, but start them one at a time, figure out what works in terms of predictable income, and then introduce another one and introduce another one. So then you have sales. So you have marketing strategies that create people who are interested, those are prospects, and then sales is what your conversion rate is. And then from your sales, then you move into customer service strategies, because once you have a customer or even a potential customer touches your business, that starts the customer service strategies in place. Then you need human resource strategies. Then you need finance and administration strategies. And at the end of the day, at the bottom line, there will be profit. And that's called the typical business funnel. And every business has that. How you go about doing the work of your business can be unique and very different, but that's the standard business funnel. So Kathy, that may have raised some other questions on from your part with what I said. So give me some feedback on that, and if you felt that answered your question.
It did. Thanks. It's great. I mean, it's nice to know that there is a distinction, because I think personally I would feel that there would be. So that's great. One of the things I might ask you then, in light of what you were talking about with business planning and all of that, is that going along in your business, things sometimes you've got a plan, and then of course things can change. And
yeah.
At what point does a person stop and reevaluate their actual business plan relating to where you are? And how often, a year or month, or what's your suggestion for that?
Great question, Kathy. And here's the thing, is that when a person's starting a business, you're basing your planning based on assumptions. Because at that particular point in time, you don't know what you don't know. So you're basing this assumptions, projections. You've hopefully done some market research. You know what your competition is. So you've done all the fundamentals of a business plan. And I'm really encouraging all of our listeners here, even if you haven't done a formal business plan that you might go to the bank for example, for financing, it's still really important that your business plan is captured, that there's some components of it that you've captured in the research that you've done. Because you have to really make a business case for your business. Just because you and your friends and family think your business is a good idea doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good idea. Now I know, Kathy, you've done some extensive business planning. So here's what it is that you're actually going out and you're making assumptions based on how you think the market will respond, all the circumstances, where you are in terms of your life ability to be able to put time and energy into your business, all of that. So you're immediately going into business with these assumptions in place. And the minute one of those assumptions is proving to not be what you thought it was, you have to reevaluate. There is no sense in continuing to move down a particular road if one of the pieces in there has changed. So it could be, for an example, that a person puts a business plan together and decides this is their particular market. And then they do their marketing and they're out there in the marketplace, and all of a sudden who's responding to their inquiries or their marketing and making inquiries isn't who they identified their market to be. That's their target market or niche market, depending what term you want to use for that, or specific audience. So here's the piece. If you're attracting a client that is different than the client you originally identified, then you have to stop and say to yourself, is this new client going to be my ideal client? Is this client going to fulfill what my goals, what my vision is for my business? And if it's not your ideal client, then it's your marketing message and what you're offering out to the marketplace that is not resonating with your specific audience. So you want to go back and look at your marketing message, your imaging, whatever your, how you've branded yourself has to be assessed in light of that. Other things that can happen is you can make assumptions based on a financial situation. Let's say you were going to have an influx of capital that was going to allow you to do some marketing, and that hasn't come together. Well, that fundamentally will change your business. So anytime you have something that is different than the assumptions that you have, you go back and evaluate it, especially in the early days. Now, as your business gets going, you have predictable, reliable income coming in. You have marketing strategies that you know are working. You have your sales conversion rate is good. Your customer service is working pretty good. Then, on a regular basis, I would say 6 months to a year, go back and take a look at your assumptions. Business plans are not etched in stone. They're written in sand because business fluctuates. Things can happen in the marketplace. There are huge, wide sweeping changes. Well, even take, for an example, if you were a bricks and mortar business before the advent of the internet. Imagine how that has changed your business. Imagine if you were in the advertising business and look at what the internet and all social media has done. You would have to go back and assess your assumptions really quickly, because if you continue to go down that road, and there are examples all over the places, what ends up happening is those businesses unfortunately end up going out of business because they're no longer relevant in today's marketplace. So Kathy, did that answer your question?
It did, thanks. That was very helpful.
Okay. Did it raise any others for you on that particular topic, or did we kind of cover that one off good for now?
I think that was great. Thank you.
Okay, good. So Grace, I'm going to go over to you now and ask you, what kind of burning questions do you have for Coach Kerry today on business?
I find it really helpful, Kerry. A lot of you've helped me as my coach in terms of getting clarity, because often it's like we head off in all directions, or certainly I can. And as a counsellor, people come for a variety of reasons, and so sometimes I have found it difficult to figure out, okay, so what's my niche and who's my ideal customer? Because I don't necessarily want to turn people away and say, oh, well, you're not my ideal customer, sorry. So some of my questions are about what are some useful questions to ask oneself in terms of defining one's niche and turning people who are maybes into either yeses or nos in terms of one's service?
Okay, so that's kind of two questions, so hopefully I can answer both of those. So the first one's in terms of your niche is, and one of the things I want to be really clear to the two of you and to the audience here today, is that when you're defining your niche, your target audience, your specific audience, what we're talking about here is an area of the marketplace from a marketing standpoint that you want to serve. And the clearer you get in your messaging to that particular person, that ideal person, then what you're saying in all of your marketing will resonate with them. So it's a really key piece. What that doesn't mean is that if someone comes along who is a potential client who doesn't fit in that niche, it doesn't mean that you can't take them on or that you won't take them on as a client. You might consider, yes, I will. We're talking from a marketing standpoint. So those are really key things. Now, some other criteria that you want to add to that is that there may be an audience that you love to work with. And you say, gee, this is an audience I'd really like to work with. Well, what you have to also understand is they have to have the ability to buy your services. So, Grace, for an example, let's say for you, you said that you really love to work with young teenage girls who maybe are starting to have an issue with weight, for an example. And you say, this is, I really love to be able to work with this audience. Well, if that was our only criteria, what you're passionate about, I have a suspicion you would have a difficult time, reaching that youth. And second of all, we could talk about some social media channels and everything else, but the bottom line is, do they have the ability to buy your services? And the answer likely would be, no, they wouldn't. So it's a combination of who is your niche. In other words, what do they want? Really key. What are they looking for? So you can specifically articulate what are their problems, what keeps them awake at night, what makes them worry, what are they frustrated about, and do you provide a service, a solution to those problems? And if the answer is yes to that, then you want to articulate that in your marketing message. Then the second question is, what do you want? And a fundamental piece in that is to identify who you like working with as clients. For me, for an example, as a coach, one of my criteria is I want to work with clients that actually are willing to be coachable. And for Grace, I know for you, it will be clients that are willing to accept the counseling. That would be an important criteria. And while that seems self-evident, it isn't necessarily, especially if they've been told they need to go see a coach or they need to go see a counselor by someone else, and they're there reluctantly. So that would be an important criteria. So you might have 5 or 6 different pieces that are really important in terms of your ideal person for you, who you like working with, who gives you energy, who is the kind of person that is a good fit for you. And I think that's a really important piece. And then one of the other pieces in there is, what do you want, which is you want to make money. This is a business. And so that has to be an audience also that has the ability to buy. Because what you're looking for is there a match between the two. So going back to your question about that niche, and you don't want to turn people away, by no means, Grace, if you identify that there's a particular area that you're going to that you're going to market in to attract those kinds of clients, if someone else from another area comes over here and says, Grace, I'd like to work with you, and they fit that criteria, the other criteria in terms of the ideal person for you to work with, of course you're going to work with them. But if from a marketing standpoint what you try and do is cast too broad a net, what ends up happening is you don't resonate with anyone, and no one will come and buy your services. Does that make sense, Grace?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think there's often the fear, especially when you start off in business, that you better try to spread the net widely. And in some ways you need to, because you don't know exactly who's going to be your ideal client. But as you go along, there'll be certain patterns in terms of the kinds of problems, in my case with counselling, and people who will come my way. So I can also think it's kind of a developmental thing in terms of our businesses. But certainly the clearer we are about who we want and the message we send out, the more likely we're going to attract the kind of people we want to work with. and who will benefit most from the work we do or the service we provide.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Grace, I know there was a second part to that question, and I didn't write it down. Do you remember what that second part of your question was?
No.
Okay, that's why, and I may have answered all of that in that piece. But it's a really important piece to not be worried about losing clients. That's a really key piece. So really, this relates to Kathy's question as well in the business planning piece, because as part of business planning and then the marketing planning which is encompassed or as part of your business plan, is you will identify who you believe at that particular point in time is your ideal audience or your target market. And then you're going to go out and you're going to put that out to the marketplace, and then you're going to discover who you're attracted to, or who is attracted to what your offering is. So Grace, as you said, it will definitely fluctuate initially, depending. You'll be in a learning stage, absolutely. And let's face it, in the early days, you want to take as many clients as you can because you need to generate some revenue that's there. But as you move and you know now you have some predictable income, that's when you can start saying, okay, who is my ideal audience? Because when you develop an area of expertise and you're known as the such and such person, whatever that happens to be, there's a psychological piece from a potential customer that says, well, if they know about that, then they really have to know about this as well. That when you're deemed to be an expert, and you can go out there in the world today and look at people who's got their start as an expert in something, and now they're also an expert in all of these other areas as well, or at least they're known for that. And that happened because they were known as an expert in this area, and then people would ask them, well, what do you know about this? And do you know about this? And do you know about this? And sure enough, they did, and they were able to market themselves as an expert in that area as well. So we're coming up to wrap up our time. Any last burning questions from either you, Grace, or Kathy, for me?
Not for me, Kerry, but I find that what you say is so resonates a lot in terms of either what I've already learned or what I need to learn. So I'm very grateful for the reminders.
Great, thank you.
And me as well, Kerry. Thanks very much for having me on again. I always learn some great nuggets every time, and don't have any burning questions at this point, but I'm sure I'll think of some for next week.
Great, excellent. So to the audience, you can reach me through Kerry, Kerry, at Success, Biz, B-I-Z, if you're in the United States, or bizcoach.com. Or go on to my Google Plus account and hang out with Coach Kerry. And if you have any questions, we'll be doing this Q&A and open questions regarding business quite regularly. So I'd be happy to incorporate the questions you have. So until then, we'll see you next Monday and 9 a.m. Mondays for Hangout with Coach Kerry. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kerry. Bye.